In light of recent events, I figured it was time I start putting some more of my focus on the 2025 NHL Draft. The recent events I'm referring to are the Red Wings being 2-8 in their last 10 and once again collapsing in the month of March. It's looking like it's going to be yet another year where they have a lottery pick, so once we get to the NHL Draft, I want to be at least somewhat familiar with a lot of the prospects that are expected to go in the first half of the first round. So I figured now would be a good time to do my first mock draft of the season. We're only going to be doing the top 10 because, again, I'm really just now starting to put a lot of my focus on the upcoming NHL Draft. I don't claim to be a scout or anything like that. To spice things up, I ran a lottery sim on Tankathon, and here are the results we got. Seattle jumped up 5 spots to get the first overall pick. Then we have Pittsburgh, San Jose, Chicago, Nashville, Buffalo, Philly, Anaheim, Boston, and Detroit. So that's the order we're going to be using. So with that all being said, let's go ahead and start off. First overall, I have the Seattle Kraken selecting left shot defenseman Matthew Schaefer from the Erie Otters of the OHL. It really doesn't seem like there is a consensus first overall pick heading into the 2025 NHL Draft. I wouldn't be surprised to see Hagens go first overall, or Michael Misa, or obviously Matthew Schaefer. I really think it's going to come down to which team ends up landing that first overall pick. And for a team like Seattle, I definitely think Matthew Schaefer would make the most sense for them. They already have talented young forwards on the NHL roster like Matty Beniers and Shane Wright. Most of their top prospects in the system are forwards as well, guys like Berkeley Catton and Jagger Furcus. So I think if a player like Matthew Schaefer is available for Seattle, wherever they end up drafting, it would be a slam dunk of a pick. Schaefer is far and away the best defenseman in the draft. I think there is a pretty big gap between him and the rest of the defensemen that are expected to go in the first round. It's looking like it's going to be a pretty forward-heavy draft, at least when it comes to the top 15 or so picks. As a little spoiler, I only have one other defenseman going in the top 10 of this mock draft. On top of being the consensus best defenseman in this class, Matthew Schaefer is also one of the younger players in the class. He wasn't all that far off from not being eligible to be drafted until 2026, so the fact that he is viewed as the best defenseman in the 2025 class and a potential first overall draft pick just goes to show how talented this guy is. He had 22 points in 17 games with the Erie Otters before the World Juniors. He obviously looked pretty damn good in the couple of games he played for Canada in the World Juniors, but then went down with that collarbone injury that sidelined him for basically the remainder of the season. If a normal prospect had an injury like that in their draft year, it would probably affect their draft stock significantly, but not Matthew Schaefer. He looks to be a can't-miss prospect. When it comes to areas of his game that could use some improvement, people are going to point at the defensive side of things, which seems to usually be the case when it comes to top defensive prospects who put up a lot of points in junior, but honestly, I don't really have too many worries about the defensive side of Schaefer's game. He's already got good size. He's 6'2", over 180 pounds, fantastic skater, very mobile. He has all the tools to become an elite all-around top-pairing defenseman in the NHL. Moving on now with the second overall pick, I have the Pittsburgh Penguins selecting forward Michael Misa from the Saginaw Spirit of the OHL. I think it's safe to say Michael Misa is the most explosive offensive talent in this draft class. Across all the different scouting reports I've read on Misa and the videos I've watched about him, the biggest consistency seems to be everybody just raves about his skating and his top-end speed and his ability to control the puck and make game-breaking offensive plays without breaking stride. Whether he ends up playing at the center position or on the wing long-term, I think this is a guy who's going to put up a lot of points at the NHL level. He's not really a prospect that I think you can call a playmaker or a goal scorer. He's definitely a dual threat in that sense. He's a very well-rounded offensive game. He leads the entire OHL with 126 points in 62 games. His second half has been especially impressive. The dude has just went off. I still can't get over the fact that Michael Misa didn't, at the very least, even get an invite to Team Canada's evaluation camp for the World Juniors. And seeing how badly that team struggled at times offensively during the tournament, it's safe to say they definitely could have used a player with the game-breaking offensive abilities that Michael Misa has. If the lottery balls do in fact end up going in favor of the Pittsburgh Penguins and they're able to jump up to a top 3 pick in this draft and land a player like Michael Misa, the thought of having someone like him learn from a guy like Sidney Crosby for the first few years of his NHL career sounds like a dream scenario for the Penguins. Moving on now to the third overall pick. This is really my first bold prediction of this mock draft, if you even want to call it about that, but pretty much every mock draft I've seen has the top 3 being some order of Schaefer, Misa, and Hagens, so I am changing things up a little bit here from what the consensus top 3 seems to be, as I have the San Jose Sharks selecting forward Porter Martone from the Brampton Steelheads of the OHL. I really think this would come down to if the Sharks view Will Smith as a center long term. He's played a lot of wings so far this season, but me personally, I still like him as their second line center long term behind Macklin Celebrini, so that's why I'm leaning Martone as a fit for the Sharks over somebody like James Hagens. I think Porter Martone would be perfect as a staple on Macklin Celebrini's line for years to come. He's got a great combination of size, speed, and skill. He's also one of the older players in the class. Comparing him to Matthew Schaefer, who I had going first overall, Porter Martone is around 10 months older than Schaefer, and considering the fact that he already has an NHL frame, I wouldn't be surprised to see Porter Martone crack an NHL lineup as soon as next season. Moving on now to the 4th overall pick, not going to galaxy brain this one. We already saw the Blackhawks elect to go with a defenseman over somebody like Ivan Demidov with the 2nd overall draft pick last year. In my opinion, you definitely don't do that again this year. The future of the Blackhawks blue line looks to be in pretty good hands with guys like Vlasic, Lev Shinov, Rinzel, Del Mastro, and Korchinski. Here, I think they definitely would have to go with best forward available, best player available, and to me, that is definitely James Hagens, who, again, like I said earlier in the video, I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up going 1st overall. Unlike the 3 prospects we've already talked about in this mock draft so far, James Hagens is somebody who, in my opinion, really improved his draft stock at the World Juniors. Hagens had a fantastic tournament en route to Team USA, winning the gold medal. He finished with 9 points in 7 games, playing as that team's first-line center, centering the same 2 wingers that he centered all season long at Boston College, Gabe Perreault and Ryan Leonard. As a freshman, Hagens finished the season with Boston College at a point per game, 35 points in 35 games. He already plays a very responsible two-way game as well, having a 1-2 punch down the middle for the next decade plus of Connor Bedard and James Hagens would be absolutely disgusting. I think the Blackhawks would be thrilled to come out of this draft with a player like Hagens. Rounding out the top 5 now with the 5th overall selection, I have the Nashville Predators taking the first European skater Anton Frondel. He had some injury problems early on in the season, but his second half has been fantastic and has led to him rocketing up a lot of people's draft rankings. His numbers on the season as a whole for Djurgården in the Allsvenskan are very impressive: 11 goals, 25 points in 29 games. He has a lethal shot, great puck protection skills as well, which makes him pretty tough to handle along the boards and behind the net in the offensive zone. At just 17 years old, he already has a pretty well-rounded 200-foot game as well. He does project as a center long term. I could see Nashville wanting to go with a defenseman here because behind Molendyk, I think their prospect pool when it comes to defensemen is pretty weak. But again, like I said at the beginning of the mock draft, I feel like there is a pretty large gap between Matthew Schaefer and the next best defenseman. So in my opinion, it would definitely be a bit of a stretch for Nashville to elect to go with a defenseman here over somebody like Anton Frondel. I think it makes the most sense for them to go with best player available in this spot. Moving along now with the 6th overall selection, I have the Buffalo Sabres selecting centerman Caleb Denoyer from the Moncton Wildcats of the QMJHL. Denoyer has had a monster season in the Q, tied for 3rd in league scoring with 84 points in 56 games. He's 18 points clear of the 2nd highest leading scorer on the Wildcats. Definitely a lot to like. He's the best player on the best team in the Q. He's a big center who may not be elite at any one thing, but he's pretty damn good at everything. I don't think he has the same kind of upside as players like Hagens or Michael Misa, but I do feel like Caleb Denoyer has a pretty high floor. I think he's a safe bet to at the very least become a very effective middle 6 player in the NHL. Moving on now with the 7th overall pick, I have the Philadelphia Flyers taking a bit of a swing here and selecting Roger McQueen from the Brandon Wheat Kings of the WHL. I think Roger McQueen is a fascinating prospect, somebody who has an insane amount of potential, but there would obviously be a little bit of risk involved taking him with this high of a draft pick. But that's why I have a team like Philadelphia taking a chance on him, because I think they can afford to take a swing like this. They have 3 first-round draft picks in the 2025 draft. Some of the reasons for concern when it comes to Roger McQueen: he missed the majority of this season with injuries. He only appeared in 14 games for the Brandon Wheat Kings. Looked good in those games though, had 9 goals and 18 points. Another reason for concern: his skating mechanics look pretty wonky at times, and obviously skating is such an important part of becoming an effective player at the NHL level. But if he can stay healthy and continue continue to improve his skating and even just become an average skater at the NHL level, I think the possibilities are endless. He's a 6'5" centerman with fantastic hands and a rocket of a shot. Kind of gives me Tage Thompson vibes in that sense. Obviously, Tage Thompson took quite a while after being drafted to really break out and come into his own, but once he did, there was no looking back. Moving along now with the 8th overall pick, I have the Anaheim Ducks selecting forward Victor Eklund, who, like Anton Frondell, put up very solid point totals this season for Djurgårdens in the Allsvenskan, 31 points in 42 games for Eklund. I also thought he was one of Sweden's best players in the World Juniors. In my opinion, he had a very impressive showing in that tournament. Kind of like his older brother, William Eklund of the San Jose Sharks, Victor Eklund is an undersized winger, but more than makes up for it with his compete level. He certainly doesn't shy away from going to the dirty areas and battling for loose pucks around the boards and taking the puck to the front of the net. In fact, I actually think he excels in those areas because he has such a fantastic set of hands. He's very shifty, very elusive. Victor Eklund is definitely one of my favorite prospects heading into the 2025 draft so far. I would love to see him end up in Detroit, but I just can't see that happening unless Detroit really bottoms out from here to the remainder of the season and lands themselves a top 7 or 8 pick. Next up with the 9th overall pick, I have the Boston Bruins selecting centerman Jake O'Brien from the Brantford Bulldogs of the WHL. One of the many very talented centers that are expected to go in the first half of the first round of the 2025 NHL draft. Jake O'Brien very well may be the best playmaker in the class. He's an assist per game for Brantford in the OHL this season, 64 assists in 64 games, a total of 96 points, which puts him 7th in league scoring. A lot of what I've read and seen about Jake O'Brien, people rave about his high hockey IQ, how he's always outthinking his opponents, his great play away from the puck as well. I think this would be a great pick for a team like the Boston Bruins, who are in a bit of a retool. In my opinion, a guy like Jake O'Brien would immediately be the best prospect in their system. And now finally, finishing up the mock draft, rounding out the top 10, I have the Detroit Red Wings selecting defenseman Jackson Smith from the Tri-City Americans of the WHL. 6'3", left shot defenseman, 190 pounds, skates really well. A lot of people view Jackson Smith as the second best defenseman in this draft class. Seeing as how the Red Wings have drafted a forward with their highest pick in the draft in each of the last 3 drafts, I would be genuinely surprised if they do that again. That's why I have them going with the defenseman here. Now, yes, I do still feel like the Red Wings are lacking another truly dynamic forward, but I just don't think you're going to get that in the 10 to 15 range of this draft, which is where they're likely going to end up selecting. So I think someone like Jackson Smith makes a lot of sense. Obviously, the Red Wings already have 2 young studs on the blue line in the NHL in Simon Edvinsson and Moritz Seider. Axel Sandin Pellikka is coming up through the system. He looks like the real deal, but he plays the right side. So I think a guy like Jackson Smith could one day, if he pans out, really round out the Red Wings top 4. A top 4 on paper of Edvinsson and Seider, and then maybe Jackson Smith and Axel Sandin Pellikka sounds pretty damn good. So that is going to wrap up my first 2025 NHL mock draft of the season. Again, I don't claim to be a scout or anything like that. I really just do these for fun. So as always, I want to know what you guys are thinking. If you disagree with any of my picks, be sure to let me know what your top 10 looks like down below in the comments. If you made it all this way to the end of the video and you ended up enjoying yourself, please remember to leave a like. It's the best way to let me know that you enjoyed, and it does help out the videos a ton. And most importantly, if this was your first time checking out the channel and you want more NHL content just like this all year round, be sure to hit that subscribe button, and I will talk to you all again soon.